Here we go. Well,
Here we
thank you
are.
so much, Mandy, for being on here. I'm obviously I do the audio side of things when it comes to voiceover, right? That's what I do. That's the lane I stay in. So, I'm always getting questions from voice actors about voiceover, not about the audio, whether it be about script breakdown or just the delivery in general, or just a bunch of, you know how many questions you can get, right? And so I'm always like, well, I don't really want to answer it because I do have some knowledge when it comes to, the voiceover side of things because I did voiceover for a while and I've kind of taken a back seat to that because of the audio stuff. That is, and it's a good problem to have. I've done so much audio stuff that I've kind of had to put it away. But when I get these questions, I always think, well, I don't want to answer that question. I want to send them to a professional, someone who does this day in and day out, knows the industry, knows the trends, knows what's going on. And for a while there, I didn't really have anyone or anywhere that I trusted to send people. And then I found you one day on TikTok, which was
Aw.
awesome. And I just was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to her. And I did. And you were super mean at first. No, I'm just kidding. You were very, very sweet, which
That
was really
tracks.
refreshing, very refreshing. And we just kind of hit it off, and we've just been doing things kind of behind the scenes for a while. And so this is actually my first time getting to like see your face and speak to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not over the phone,
that's right.
which is great.
I hadn't really thought about that way
Yeah.
before, and that's so interesting because in this industry, that's how a lot of these relationships form, and
Yeah.
they can be so close and, intricate, and yet you never see the people, like,
Yes.
see the people or talk to the people,
Yeah.
and that's amazing. I can't believe this is, like, really the first time.
I know, I
Really the
know. It's
first
weird to
time.
think about it. And I mean, and that's what you just said in like one of your last TikTok videos. You were talking about like you have a lot of relationships with people that maybe you don't see, but they're very
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah.
They're very impactful, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I met you, I was like, okay, now I have someone to send people that I trust because I watched a
Aw.
ton of your videos and I was like, oh yeah, yeah, she's got it. And also, it's not that you have the information. I think what's huge is your booking. Your booking.
Mm.
That's huge. Like, you can go to a coach, and there are tons of coaches out there that maybe they're not actively in the industry, but they really know their stuff. But then there's some that, maybe they don't quite know their stuff as well as they should, and they're not booking. But, I would say most people want to get, I guess, help from people that they know are actively
Mhm.
doing said thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes all the difference in the world. Like the information that you get going through it, being in it, being part of it, doing the thing that you are talking about. I mean, what's more important than having that insider information? I can't think of anything more important than actually being in it.
Right, exactly. And then even better, icing on the cake, you have a course that you've just released or you're releasing soon, I think, right?
Yeah, so we're releasing it in like once a quarter. So
Gotcha.
I did the first wave in January and then it comes out again in April. But yeah, it's a
Nice.
voiceover business course because so many people ask me questions, yes, about the performance side of things, but
Yeah.
the business side, if you want to do this as a career, not many people teach the business side. And when
Yeah.
you first get into voiceover, you don't understand the nuances of the business and the different verticals that there are. Because what works for commercial doesn't necessarily work for interactive or radio imaging or looping. I mean, there's different ways of going about the business, and no one really talks about those different things unless you take one-on-one coaching with someone in that vertical. So this kind of is a conglomerate of the business side of things so that you can really get a good foundation of knowledge to scale and grow and make it a career if that's what you want to do.
And I love that because I mean, for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, I would say it's the most complicated side in a lot of ways, right?
Oh,
Because there's
yes.
no like, especially, let's just take a step back, especially the entertainment industry. There's no set guide for
Yeah.
anything, right? It's just what works for you doesn't work for me. What works for me doesn't work for the next person.
Which in a lot of ways is beautiful and wonderful,
Yeah,
right? And it's great to have that flexibility and freedom to be able to carve out your own way of doing things so that you're not beholden to some weird strict set of rules that someone else has created. Like
right.
great. However, it does make things a little complicated when you're
Yes.
trying to figure stuff out and how to do things and
Yeah.
how to not screw up things. And,
Yeah.
I try to tell people, like, look, even if you have all the information in the world, you're still going to make mistakes. Mistakes will happen. You're still going to go through a period of time where, oh, that didn't work out the way I thought it was. And that's okay. Like, you're not going to get blacklisted and you're not going to, unless you do something unforgivable, which I
Yeah.
can't imagine what that would be. But, we're human beings. And I think we're seeing a shift back to how human beings work. I think for a period of time there was that perfection of working and everyone was just sort of on tiptoes, like walking on eggshells. And now I think we're seeing that shift back to, hey, we're working from home. We're all just trying to keep it together and we're all just trying to do this.
Yes.
Okay. Like,
Yes.
yes, you can hear the siren outside. Let's just all take a break and have a glass of water. Okay. Like,
Yes.
yes, you can hear the dog barking. Like, go give him a treat. It's going to be fine. Like, I think we're seeing that patience come back
Yeah.
and we're seeing people just be like, yeah, it's okay. We're human beings. We have lives. We have stuff going on. Let's just drop the facade of this perfection and everything has to be perfect all the
Yeah.
time because that's not reality and
No.
nobody can live like that.
Yeah, it's so much pressure and so much stress. Like when all this really started happening during COVID, it was so much pressure and stress for voice
Yes.
actors because they were just thrust into, oh my God, I have to have a home studio. It has to be impeccable, blah, 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 blah. And now things are lightening up, which I think is great. And I
Yeah.
honestly, as far as the home studio stuff goes, I could talk about this for hours because that's what I do. But let's save that for another conversation so we don't get too into the weeds because I get into the weeds
Because
very
you
much.
could, you could talk about it for
So
a very long
much.
time,
So
and we're
much.
grateful. We're
Yes.
so grateful for
Thank
that.
you.
You talked a lot about instilling trust in me, and
Yeah.
and I have instilled a lot of trust in you for what
Thank
you
you.
do and your knowledge. And anyone listening, if you need anything on the audio side, on the sound treatment side, on the booth side, like James is the guy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, okay. So this is kind of a step back, kind of a broad overview of you're just getting into voiceover. Okay. So what do you do? Because that's a huge question, right? People are like, well, I wanna get into voiceover. I wanna dip my toes in the water, but I have no idea where to even begin. What do I do? So I guess the first thing I would ask you before we can even talk about getting into voiceover, we have to define what is voiceover? And more specifically, because this might make it even easier for people, what isn't voiceover?
Yeah, yeah. And that's an interesting question because again, there's not a ton of rules, right? Like there's not a ton of rules in the entertainment industry and in voiceover specifically, but a lot of people don't know that voiceover is everywhere, right? Like it's in your grocery store, it's in when you call businesses, it's on the radio, it's on the TV, of course, places that we commonly think of it, but it is so many other places. It's in amusement parks. Like it's so many places and we don't realize that all of those places are people's jobs and like, people's livelihoods. I know
Right.
so many people who just make a living off of doing IVR or make a living off of doing some obscure type of voiceover that no one's ever heard of, but that's what they do.
Right.
So, what is voiceover? It's so many things. There's so
Yeah.
many different verticals of voiceover and it exists in so many places. What it isn't, it's not just reading.
Right. Thank you.
I think that's the best way to describe it. It's not just reading words on a
So much
page.
more.
It's not just getting behind a microphone and making silly voices. It's not just uh, you know, sitting around in my pajamas and playing pretend. No, it's
Yeah.
so much more than that.
Yeah.
So I hope that was a good description.
For sure, for sure.
description.
I'll even add to it a bit. Because a lot of people just get into voiceover and they'll think like, "Oh, voiceover is podcasting," and it's like, no, 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 it is not.
Yeah.
Podcasting's great and it's wonderful to sit here and have this conversation, but this is not voiceover. This
Right.
is, it
Yes.
is a much different thing because then people get confused because they're like, "Oh, well, I've seen every podcast in the world out there is using an SM7B. So of course that
And
must be the microphone for voiceover, right?"
And that's great. Like,
Right.
great. If you want to start a podcast, that's a great mic to have a podcast on.
Exactly.
Go for it.
Yes. But it's not quite set up for voiceover. Now it's getting better because they did
Sure.
just release the SM7 DB where they added the gain booster inside the mic so that you don't have that
Ooh.
problem anymore. But it's still a
Ooh.
dynamic mic. You still have to
Mm.
be right up on that microphone, which increases the bass and makes you sound unnatural. And like you're whispering into someone's ear or talking into their ear, right? And that's not the sound that they're looking for. Most of the industry is like, no, don't you dare use a dynamic mic. Like I said, I think the industry is changing a bit, but
Yeah.
still, that's why when people are like, "Oh, it's voiceover podcast," I'm like, "No, it's not." And of course, then we go into the differences and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's a really good overall description of what voiceover is and what it's not. And then I guess you already answered my next question, which is voiceover
Oh,
just reading?
gosh, I didn't even like see
Yeah,
that,
which
honestly.
is perfect. Perfect. It is not just reading. A lot of
Nope.
people think that. They're like, "Oh, well, I can read, so I could be a voice actor." And I was like, "No. No, because like they don't get voice acting. It takes acting. That's the key. That's the key
Yep.
word."
It is what it says it is. It is voice acting. So above all and everything else, yes, you can have an amazing voice, right? Everyone has a good voice. Everyone has a good voice. If you have a voice, you have a good voice. Having
Right.
a good voice doesn't matter. No one gives a flying fart how good your voice is.
Right.
It's what you can do with it. It's how
Exactly.
well you can be emotive and make choices and make believable choices. So
Yeah.
being a good actor is the utmost importance. And then I
Yeah.
would say being a good business person is the
Oh,
second most important thing. And it has
yes.
nothing to do with how good your voice is.
Yeah. And again, to push your course because I've been in the industry for a while, and any class I've taken or courses I've seen online, I honestly I have yet to see a really good one or even any that talk about the business side of voiceover,
Mm,
and it makes a lot of voice actors feel helpless because they get all this training, right? And they're like, "Okay, I've got breaking a script down. I feel like I can deliver the things the way casting's wanting. I've got my home studio, I've got my audio down, great." And then they just hit the ground running. And then they're like, "Well, wait, I don't
now what?
understand the business side." Yeah, and there's a lot to it. There can be a lot to it. And then they get overwhelmed. No one's helped them. People have given them probably really general basic information. And if anything, maybe that's more confusing. And now they're
Right.
like, "Great. What was all this for?"
Right. And that's heartbreaking to me. Like
Yes.
that is such a harsh reality that I know a lot of actors face. I mean, I've faced that before. I mean, I went to school for theater and performance, and not one class over the 4 years I was in college did I learn about being a business person on the side of the entertainment industry.
Yep.
And I think that's, I could talk all about the problems in theater departments and
Yeah.
colleges, but
Yeah.
w- you exactly what you said. We have failed as a society in this industry to prepare people properly for what it means to be in the business side of it.
Yeah.
So, when I was first starting in voiceover, there was nothing. There was no information, especially for kids. And as a kid trying to do voiceover in a time where no one was doing it and it wasn't the cool thing, nobody had any answers. So trying to figure that out in that stage of life was almost impossible.
Yeah.
So I try to create content that I wish I would have had when
Right.
I was starting out so that people don't fall into that. Okay, I've done all these great things to be an actor.
Yeah.
Now what do I do? I don't ever want anybody to feel like they don't have a next step, a
Yeah.
roadmap, which is what my program is called, the voiceover actor roadmap,
Yes.
a roadmap to continue their journey as an actor. Like,
Yeah.
you never wanna be stagnant, you never wanna plateau, and so you constantly have to be scaling, and if you don't know how to do that, then you're gonna be stuck, and then the wind is gonna get knocked out of your sails, and then you're just gonna, be a sad person, and no one wants that.
No, no, and it sucks. I hate seeing it because I used to see it all the time on my end. Obviously, my experience is different because on my end, my job is to teach them about their home studio, about their audio, recording in a DAW, blah, 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 setting up all the equipment. And a lot of voice actors would get to me and they would have taken a ton of classes, and those classes would either, one, not really cover home studios or audio, or they would cover it, but they would fluff it up. Like, they would be like,
Oh,
"Oh, it's not that important. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's really easy." And when they got to a person that wouldn't sugarcoat anything or fluff it up, I unfortunately had to watch kind of the light die a little bit out of their eyes, and it sucks. It sucks
yeah, of
so much
course.
because,
But
like,
that's such a gift. Like,
yeah.
it's such a gift to be able to give somebody the truth, you
Yes,
know?
yes. It sucks, but it's a gift because, like, maybe you've experienced this. It almost, and maybe this is my own personal issues that I've gotta figure out, but I feel like the bad guy, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
actually the good guy, but I feel as I'm delivering the information, I feel like the bad guy because 'cause I'm watching them get blow after blow because they weren't prepared in
of course,
in
of
the
course.
classes or coaching they took before, and it kills me. And
And that's what I
so,
mean.
yeah.
We've failed as a society in this industry to prepare people for that.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why it's good to have people like you and
And
me
you.
to
Yeah.
be able to say, look, like, yes, you're on the right track, but there's still a lot more to do, baby cakes. Like, we
Right.
still have a lot more to do if this is what you want to do. If you want to do
Yeah.
this as a career, then this is the reality because this is the landscape of the industry of the people that you are competing against, the people
Yes.
who have been doing this professionally. This is what it's like. If you want to do this as a hobbyist, great. That's also awesome. And you can do hobbyist work in this capacity with what you have right now.
Right.
But if you want this to be your career, if you want this to be something that you're doing as your job, as something that keeps you financially sustainable,
Yeah.
then this is the reality of the situation. And that can
Right.
be a hard pill to swallow for sure.
It is. It is. And like, some studios, maybe there's no bad intentions. They just don't want to overwhelm people. And I totally get that. But it's,
Sure.
to me, it's like, it's more overwhelming to like hide the truth about how hard voiceover can be for them to find out later when they fall on their face when they release
Absolutely.
them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
like so
Or,
much
you
worse.
know, getting demos too early or getting
Yes.
gear too early or doing things out of,
Treating your home
order.
studio like the first thing you do. It's like, don't do that.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't even know if you like voiceover.
Exactly, and then you've sunk all of this money into
Yes.
something that you're not even gonna do. I mean, that's, again, another hard pill to swallow.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, it can be the biggest, blow to a voice actor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which is
of
awful.
course.
But okay,
Yeah.
let's pivot and let's say, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, but let's just say whether it's you or just, you know, X, somebody is like, I really want to get into voiceover. And they're just sitting there. Maybe they're watching their favorite cartoon. Maybe they're just watching a commercial. Who knows? But they're like, you know what? I would love to do that. What would you say do first? What is their first step?
I think the first step is to get on Google and Google what is a voiceover actor? What do voiceover actors do? Who are voiceover actors? Like, Google is your friend, right?
Yes.
Like, get on Google, do some research. There's great websites, there's great discords. And look, you're going to encounter all sorts of information. You're going to
Right.
encounter good, you're going to encounter bad. But it's your job right now to be in the gathering phase of this information so that you can get all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you start to build community and join Facebook groups and discords and TikTok and you're in the community of people who are doing it, then you can ask them their opinions on the
Yeah.
information that you gathered. Is this good? Is this relevant? Does this still matter? Is this what you do? How do you tackle XYZ? Then you gather that information and then you can understand, okay, well, maybe I'm interested in audiobooks, or maybe I actually don't want to do character work in interactive, but I want to do more in commercial or looping or radio imaging or e-learning. Like, there's so many different types of voiceover. So as you gather all of that information, it can help you understand what you want to do. And then, after you've done all of the free information gathering and watched the YouTubes and done this and done that, then I advise you take a class.
Right. Okay. Love that answer. That is so much better than, like, I knew I was going to get a good answer for that, but I like love that so much. It's so perfect. Google is your friend, guys. It is. And just like Mandy said, you're going to get a lot of information. and a lot of contrasting information even. But that's the whole point. Gather all of that information as much as you can. And as you whittle that down and find people in the industry, you're going to hear those people in the industry say the same things consistently. And you're going to go, oh, well, then that must be true. If you hear
Mhm.
them saying the same things over and over, you know there's a high likelihood that that's true. And so once you gather all that data, like, okay, I'm going to take a class. So, okay, that's my next question. They take a class, right? And let's say, who knows, it could be a workshop even. It could be like a 3-hour workshop, or it could be a 3-month long commitment. Who knows? But, and I know this changes your answer, but as general, I guess, as it can be, because you can't talk on every single scenario. They get out of that class and now they
Mhm.
go, what do I do? What do I do now
Yeah.
with all that
Yeah.
info?
Yeah. Um, it does not change my answer,
Oh, good,
actually.
good.
Because just because you take one class doesn't mean you're done, right?
Right.
Like, you could take a 3-month class. I mean, that's a a big chunk of time and money, I'm sure.
Yep.
But if you feel like that's the right one for you, then great. Like, who am
Yeah.
I to tell you not to?
Right.
But just because you take one doesn't mean you're one and done, or that you should stop finding other classes to take, people to network with, things to learn and understand what it is you want to do. I have been in voiceover for over 15 years and I still take beginner classes just
Yes.
because I want to know what teachers are teaching new actors. I
Yeah.
want to know, I want to stay on top of the trends. I want to stay on top of the things that may be changing slightly, because a slight change, even though, yes, it is slight, it is little, it still makes a big impact
Oh,
to
yeah.
your overall performance or business. So
Yeah.
I want to know, just because I have the information, the basic information, doesn't mean I can't still learn and grow from beginner voiceover classes. So, yes, it's taking classes, it's building network, it's understanding who people are that you should be in front of: agents, casting directors, producers, other actors. Growing that network of people is critical, because
Yeah.
community is everything. So
Yes.
building that community of people, I say, is what your focus should be on, so that you're never in the ocean swimming by yourself, right?
Yes.
You need all the other people to make sure you don't drown. And
Yeah.
like I say, swallowing a little water is inevitable and it's going
Sure.
to happen,
Yeah.
but you don't ever want to be left alone in the ocean.
I love that analogy. It's so perfect. I mean, that's
Yeah,
something I found not even just in the entertainment industry, just overall in life. Community is where it's at because,
absolutely.
DiCaprio said one time, he's like, you can be the greatest actor of all time and never make it because you didn't happen to know the right person. You weren't in the right place at the right time. The opportunity didn't arise, right? Like, you can be the best at your craft, but that's not going to
Mhm.
get you there. I mean, yes, you
Right.
do want to be as good as you can be. You know what I mean? But being as good as you can be in your home, hiding away, that's not going to help you. You
No,
have to get out there.
you have to put yourself out there, and
Yeah.
putting yourself out there, like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean just belonging to groups and being on the sidelines, right? It's
Right.
important to jump in and be active, whether it is collaborating with people or commenting, providing feedback. It's getting in there,
Yeah.
and lurking can serve you for a little bit. Fine, I
Right.
understand. Being the lurker for a little bit before you jump in, totally okay, but eventually you got to put yourself out there and put your talents out there and put your perspective out there so that you start to build trust.
100%. Couldn't have said it better. That's fantastic. Okay. I know you don't have a ton of time, so let me just ask this really quick.
Yep.
So you take your first class, right? Now you go and get your demo made, right?
Oof.
Yeah. How does that work?
So, so when I was first starting out, I had demos made after just a couple of classes, and
Yeah.
it was one of the worst decisions
Me
I
too.
made.
Me too.
One of the worst ones, and I thought I could trust the people that I was working with, and it was unfortunately not the case.
Right.
And I followed a lot of really bad advice, and I got these demos made that cost a lot of money
Ah,
and were not good. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't at the top of my game, because
yeah.
when you get a demo made, you need to be an expert. You need to be at the top of your game.
Yeah.
And when you're not, it reflects
Yeah.
in the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So I shopped around these demos to a bunch of agents and pretty much got laughed out of Manhattan. So
Right.
it took me a while. I stepped away for a while, and it took me a while to not only regain my confidence, but build myself back up from the ground up. I was like, there's clearly a lot I don't know
Right.
and a lot I need to work on. So it took me a while to start over, right?
Yes.
And then it took me years to then get demos and then shop them around again and have the people, because it's literally an agent's job to remember you. So if
Yeah.
you think that they didn't remember me the first time, you're kidding yourself. They were
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like, did you learn anything,
Yep.
in the last couple of years? Because if we're in the same spot, like, see you later. But
Yeah.
I was able to finally convince people to give me a second chance. But I don't wish that upon anybody. If you
No.
learn anything from this podcast is don't rush your learning phase because you're only new one time. You only
Yes.
get to be new once. And in that time, don't get a demo until you're ready. When are you ready? When you're an expert. When are you an expert? After you've done all of the things to learn all of the things and you're coaching and you're training and you feel like you are the best actor you can possibly be. That's when
Yes.
you're ready.
And it's not an easy answer because people are like, all right, well, give me an answer when. And it's like it's different for everybody. That's
Yeah,
why.
it really is.
Yeah. Like, it just, for example, it could take Mandy 6 months and maybe she's an incredibly fast learner and she's on it. And she's like, I'm ready for a demo. It could take me 2 years.
Mhm.
That's why it's like, it's not like becoming, and trust me, I am not making light of this. It's not like becoming a doctor.
Right.
Becoming a doctor is very difficult. Don't get me wrong. But there are set
But
steps
they're
that you have to follow or else
yeah,
you can't
right.
become a doctor, right? This is not that. So yeah, that's a difficult answer. And I've tried to say that in videos, in some of my videos, and I get so much pushback, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's what you just said. Agents are going to remember you. They're going to. So when you send them that demo, and I say this too, and I'm blunt, as are you in a lot of our videos, which is great. That's why I like you so much. I'm very blunt. And in my video, I said, if you get a demo too soon, you're literally showcasing to all those agents and everyone around you how much you suck.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And that you don't know that you suck.
Exactly. Yes. And
Which is worse.
Yes, it is. It is because they will remember, and that's such a hard thing because they're gonna, when you send that next demo, guess what you've already put in their mind? That first impression. That's
Yep.
very hard to kill.
Yep.
So you don't want to do that to yourself. Don't rush into anything, like you were saying. That's a big deal. Don't rush in. Be ready, then do it. Right. And then you're going to find much more success than having to
Yes.
go through what you and I did, which was,
Absolutely.
too soon.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have done that.
Yep.
Yes.
Lesson learned. But learn from our mistakes and don't do it.
Yes. Okay. So to wrap up, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to
Yeah.
the viewers because this is something, like I said, I get a lot of questions on my channel, and I'm like, I don't want to answer that, because I don't have as much confidence on those topics. So now I have someone that I can come on here and have answer these questions.
Yes.
But I just just to wrap up, the sign up is in the description below for the Voice Actor Bootcamp. And like you said, it's a business course. But what else? Do you want to describe the course anymore? Talk about it a
Yeah,
little bit?
it's in 3 parts. It's for beginners, intermediates, and advanced. So if you are maybe in the middle of your career and you don't need all of that beginner information, you can start in the intermediate course. Or if you're like, I'm already a working actor, I've gone through some of the stuff and I just need to learn how to scale, then advanced is probably for you. Or maybe all 3 are for you.
Right.
It's kind of a choose your own adventure. So
Yeah.
hopefully that can help people jump in to something that's not super overwhelming, but gives you the
Right.
information you need to go on to the next step.
And I love that you gave that choice. I think that's fantastic. But I'm a lot like
Yeah.
you. Even though I might know basic stuff, I still, even if I see a course, I still kind of go, you know what, maybe I should do the basic one too. Because it
Maybe.
can't hurt to brush up.
It
You
can't
know?
hurt.
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the greatest things I heard Jake Gyllenhaal say one time is he was like, my mom taught me this. And he said, I've never forgot. She goes, if you want to learn something, go to the child section in the library. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course. And basically,
Genius.
keep it basic. Keep it
Yeah.
simple, right? It's the most you'll get out of something, I think. But
Absolutely.
anyway, thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
Links are in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Bye.